There was all kinds of in the office from grand opening to the new building and sometimes for Christmas party and whatever. Yeah. Well, I would have been 20. Yeah, but I mean, my dad's 93. He was here earlier. So, sounds like I could.
Welcome. I would suggest that we wave, but I don't think it'll see. But we've got live stream people here, so say good morning to the people on live stream.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's very gracious that you all come, and we're thankful for everybody who's gathered today. The wisdom of Solomon says, in the eyes of the foolish, they seem to have died. Their departure is thought to be a disaster, and their going from us to be their destruction. But they are at peace. As for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last will stand upon the earth. After my awakening, God will raise me up. And in my body I shall see God. I myself shall see, and my eyes shall behold God, who is my friend, not a stranger. Job said, you will forget your miseries. You'll remember them as waters that have passed away. And your life will be brighter than the noonday. Darkness will be like the dawn. You'll have confidence because there is hope. You will be protected, and you'll take your rest in safety. You will lie down, and no one will make you afraid. We're gathered to remember Ron Wahlman, to celebrate his life. There's lots to celebrate. Ron Wahlman loved people, and people loved Ron. Ronnie will be missed, and he will be remembered. Ronald Melvin Wahlman was born July 11th, 1934 or 5. We've never been able to quite nail that down. Right? In Hamilton, son of Margaret and Archie Wahlman. Ron grew up in a large family with his siblings, David, Margie, Archie, Jimmy, Grace, and Audrey. Ronnie grew up in downtown Hamilton playing hockey, becoming a Tiger Cat fan and supporter. Ron's brother Archie played for the Tiger Cats. Oski wee wee, Oski wah wah. Okay, we'll save that for the summer. For many years, Ron and his brothers lived in the same neighborhood in Flamborough. Ron always kept close to his family. Ron married Louise Arnold. They were together 20 years. Ron took pride and joy in his only daughter, Carolyn. Ron loved Carolyn. There were lots of ice cream and trips to Florida. Ron and Carolyn remained close in their adult lives, and Ron was generous in caring for Carolyn, and Carolyn has been very generous in caring for Ron as the years have gone by. Ron founded Tigertown Leasing, building the company into the largest independent leasing company in Ontario. He had a keen mind for capacity to adapt to new circumstances. Ron started on Kenilworth Avenue and then moved to Stoney Creek for more room. Ron was a Tiger Cat fan and for many years a sponsor of the team. Ron was an early investor in developments in Blue Mountain Resort, working with his nephew, Dr. Danny. Ron bought a house in Florida. Soon had a circle of friends in Florida, as well as some folks from Hamilton who followed him there. Ron held out at his house during Hurricane Charlie. I've heard not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't get out by the time he decided to. Ron attracted people. He was outgoing, willing to talk with anyone and everyone. He enjoyed the horse races, spent lots of time at the track with friends. He invested in a few horses over the years and then off-track betting at Carly's and Stoney Creek in his later years. Ron was a friend to everybody he met. He had a salesman's heart and the capacity to be charming and wise. Ron never complained, always looking forward to time with friends and family. He loved his blue Corvette, it's parked out front. You driving that, Carolyn? All right. Make sure you get a little bit of it does have mufflers, right? It's not electric or anything.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, good, it makes noise. Yeah, I've never understood how you have a sports car that doesn't make noise. It doesn't make sense. Ron did not let his 90 years or any kind of illness slow him down. He was the last of his generation, and he deeply felt the loss of his parents and siblings and extended family. We would have liked to have Ron with us longer, and his passing comes as sorrow and frustration. We get to feel sad and angry as we do, but we also recognize our feeling are a testament to the love and the respect that we had for Ron. So then let's make our memories of Ronald Wahlman sacred memories that guide us and give us courage, perhaps even a bit of wisdom. In remembering Ron, we are reminded that his eye will always be on us. He will encourage us to enjoy life, to make good investments, to embrace people of all sorts and kinds, to take a chance and to bet on life being more interesting than we imagine. Remember and honor the people you love, and those who love you. Ronald Melvin Wahlman deserves that honor and our love. He has blessed you in many ways. He's helped you in many ways. He's challenged you in many ways. And you've returned Ron's kindness in many ways. Let's speak Ron's name. Let's remember his deeds and honor him. Thanks be to God for Ronald Melvin Wahlman. May Ron find eternal rest and peace in the life to come. Jesus said, "Come to me, you that are weary, that carry heavy burdens, will give you rest. Take my yoke on you, learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Let's bow together in prayer. Our God, you give us the gift of our span of life in this world. There is wonder and joy in that gift, but there are also times of pain and sorrow and loss. You ask us to look after each other, to show compassion, to welcome laughter, to help one another, to put aside our fears and disappointments and follow the path we are shown. We acknowledge the uncertainties of our life on earth, the surprises that come to us as joy and sorrow. We seek as a gift from you faith, that we might trust that love and life are sacred, that we are not alone in life, in death, and in life beyond death. For God, we seek your grace and help as we make sacred our memories of Ron Wahlman in love and honor. As we acknowledge our faults and failures, help us to make amends and find forgiveness and peace. Let your Spirit walk with us in grief, so that we may find comfort in all that is good and in one another. Loving Creator, you lead us with grace to peace. You do not deny your help to any who ask. You don't desire or design our sufferings, and you don't condemn us. You do not ask us to judge or condemn each other. Give us hope then, and help us believe the good news Jesus came to give us, and be at peace. Amen. Ron Wahlman has earned our love and respect, and he'll be missed. Ordinary memories, as it turns out, turn out to be very important and significant memories. As we come to a time like this, as we bring those memories to mind, let them become sacred, something we will always treasure. As we remember Ron, we will find peace and inspiration and comfort. Tony is going to come, I think, to start.
Well, I'll say my brother Ron was my good brother Ron, and I gotta miss him very much. He was so good to me, and I gotta miss him. I love you.
I will be doing my dad's speech on behalf of him. I can't believe you were gone, and that all happened so fast. Ronnie was a good brother-in-law to me and his sister, my wife Margie. Always there if we ever needed him. We went many places together over the years. I have many memories of Ronnie, one of which we became driving buddies. Every weekend, and sometimes through the week, we would head up to Collingwood for many months and years while having his house built. Through warm, sunny days, wind, rain, sleet, fog, snow, and lots of it, and blizzards. Always at night on a Friday after he finished work, always giving me a time. We were leaving, but never showing up on time. During many nights, during those winter months, we would start off here, weather not being too bad, then as we left Shelburne, the skies would open up with snow and poor visibility. Ronnie had problems with his eyes and couldn't see well at night. We would find ourselves heading off the road, and I would always ask, "Ronnie, can you see?" He'd say, "Yes, I can see." Finally, I would tell him, "Ronnie, stop the car. Don't drive anymore. Let me drive." It took a lot of convincing because Ronnie could be stubborn, and he would find a spot to pull over, and he'd let me drive. Another time we were heading to Collingwood again, and we went through Waterdam. We ended up on the sidewalk, and I asked him again, "Can you see?" And again he would say, "I can see." Ronnie was a busy man and a person who would never sit still for long. Every time we go to either Florida or Collingwood together, Ronnie would always be out puttering in his flower beds, cutting trees, planting his flowers, or pruning his rose bushes. It was never unusual for Ronnie to come in with scratches and blood dripping from many parts of the cuts from the rose bushes. And I would always ask him, "How come you're bleeding all over?" And he would say, "I'm not bleeding. Ah, it's nothing, I'm okay." Every Sunday, Ronnie would come up to my house for supper until he got sick. I loved having Ronnie and Carolyn at my family meals. We had a lot of good times and talks. I'm going to miss having him at our dinner table like I miss my wife. I hope you will still continue coming to our family dinners, Carolyn. You're welcome to come at any time. I would love to still have you come. I loved your dad and I'm going to miss him dearly.
I've been asked to read Carolyn's tribute to her dad. Being an only child, Pops was always around watching, supporting, and at times being overprotective. I always looked up to my dad and admired his energy, wit, brains, loyalty, kindness, and his strong ability to connect with people. Trying to be independent, I was reluctant to admit, but I was Daddy's little girl, definitely spoiled, but in measured ways at times, like having me drive not the nice cars at first, but instead the little service car with the light on top, or the brown Chevette with the purple paint splashes. Dad supported me through too many years of school when I wasn't sure what to do. He didn't complain, question, or attempt to tell me what to do when it came to a career, but let me make my own way. There was advice, exchange back and forth. Dad always provided input and guidance, including right up to last week. Although this was very hard for him, Dad and I developed a plan for Tigertown, and I will carry out his plan. He was overprotective of me, without a doubt. Dad and others kept an eye on me to my independent chagrin, and there are stories behind that, but I knew it was because he cared. Dad gave Rick a hard time at first, but ultimately accepted and loved Rick as his own. Dad missed Rick too, and tried to be there for me after we lost Rick. Dad worked so much in his life because he was one of those rare people who simply loved what he did, except for the brief stint as a police officer, which he quit promptly. Yes, he liked cars, but most important to him were all the people Dad dealt with over the years. He would sit in his office talking about numerous topics: horses, tiger cats, other football teams, hockey, baseball, people's lives and problems, business strategies where others sought his advice and help, which he often gave, politics, the local characters, you name it, and sometimes the discussions would get around to the cars. I would be nearby and would often hear him yakking away, later teasing him about yak, 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 and whether he was truly working or not. Dad was very appreciative for all of his customers and business associates, many of whom either were friends already or ended up as friends. Thank you for supporting Dad and allowing him the chance to do what he loved to do. The people who worked for him often stayed long-term, including Linda, Pat, Dawn, Pam, David. Rolly Tucker would likely have been there longer had he not worked himself into a heart attack shoveling snow one day at Tigertown. At Tigertown were other staff present, but in reality they were his buddies pitching in. Dad was very thankful for all of you, as am I. Dad always had a crew around him, whether they be from the horse track, from his downtown Hamilton growing up and playing hockey days, playing squash where he would be covered in round bruises, Carly's, Tigertown, Florida, Blue Mountain. I was driving the other day thinking about his friends over the years. So many names kept popping up into my head, all characters in their own ways and all associated with support, laughs, and fun memories. Many of his friends were lifelong and long-term. The broad base of people who surrounded him over the years confirmed his well-lived life. Thank you to each of you who were there for him. Dad went by Ron, but certain people called him Ronnie. You would hear Ronnie used most often from his siblings and his oldest friends. Dad's family meant a great deal to him. I have memories of being at the various homes of his parents, Audrey, Jimmy, Grace, David, and Margie, and Florida trips involving some of his siblings. I have less memories of being in Art's, David's, and Archie's places as they were at Tigertown so often. Art often popped into Tigertown, including bringing me books to read, and Art opened his home to Dad and David, where they lived for a number of years. Yes, they were on the exact same street where Linda, Grace, and Margie and Tony lived. You don't see a lot of families that close. David worked for Dad for years, and Dad felt terrible on David stopping full-time. But David carried on, often found at Tigertown at night, whether he was feeling well or not, there to help out my dad. I can still hear their various voices saying, "Ronnie," or "Oh, Ron," in conversation, or often in giving Dad crap for some joke or comment he made. There were arguments between some of the siblings at times, as expected with so many of them, but Dad always said they were family and you need to forgive. As of November 2020, Dad lost the ability to have his usual friendly bicker back and forth with Margie. Then David passed in May 2021. This left Dad the last one standing, and he struggled with that. He missed them a great deal, and going to the TICAC games after May 2021 without David was difficult for my dad. I found out Dad at times gave his spare football tickets to a kid near the stadium who may not have had a chance to go otherwise. This giving nature was typical. The siblings are all now rejoined and are highly likely continuing their friendly teasing together. Animals. Dad tolerated my, at times, excessive number of cats. He had a soft spot for cats, including in 2018, allowing David, at my encouragement, to rescue a pregnant, stray black and white cat from the back of Tigertown. But dogs and horses were Dad's thing. For dogs, there was Snoopy, Tiger 1, Mikey, Tiger 2, and Amber, most prominent, coming to mind. After Rick passed away, I was unsure how I would manage Sadie with my work travel. Dad stepped in by taking Sadie to work every day. Sadie would get up in the morning, do her usual routine, then she would go back to bed. Dad would then yell up the stairs, "Sadie, time to go to work." And Sadie would jump off the bed and run to the door ready to go. I was a very little kid when I started at the horse track with Dad. I would pick up thrown away tickets from the ground as if great treasures. This would be frowned upon in current parenting standards, as with the no seatbelt rides with the neighborhood kids to Dairy Queen. Dad enjoyed horses, associating with the owners, trainers, and jockeys who often frequented his office, or that he met up with at the track. George and Marie were frequently with Dad, with George getting Dad involved with ownership. I believe Dad's love of horses was actually a love of the people involved, including those he met with regularly at off-track right up to the age of 89, driving his Corvette, wearing his black sunglasses to see the people in this crew, ask about hot tips, and place his bets. In his 80s, Pops would work all day, then be out at night socializing. Dad had far more energy and drive than most people. As of the spring of this year, I struggled with a decision, and Dad wasn't happy about it, but as he was worried about the impact to me of everything that happened at that point, he went to Lakeview Retirement Home. Dad said he didn't belong there because he wasn't retired. Quickly though, as per his usual demeanor, he developed yet another crew of friends. Thank you to the kind staff and residents there on behalf of Dad and I. Dad was one of those tough guys who was always fine no matter the circumstances. He would rarely complain. Fight was one of his words when facing adversity. He could be bleeding, facing medical issues, stressed about business or other life situations, and he would always be fine. He'd slice his hands open on cars or those stupid prickly bushes in Florida and carry on with what he was doing. He had cataract surgery, but he was fine, driving before he was supposed to. One particular standout, tough guy memory was when he was in an accident with his truck. The truck was totaled and his dog Amber, his constant companion, was banged up and sore. Dad went briefly to hospital right after, and frankly, I'm surprised he agreed to go. After leaving hospital, he arrived at Tigertown that same day with a gauze bandage fully wrapped around his head, his hair pink, and blood on his coat. He was ready to work, which is exactly what he did. Similar to the two other times that I and others nattered at him, I questioned him what the heck was he doing working. He said, I'm fine, and carried on with his day. Physical or emotional pain occurring, the answer was always, I'm fine. The I'm fine, I'm good carried on right to last week. My dad was the epitome of strength for himself, but the others around him, often going overboard to help others. I was journeying down to Florida over and over and over again as a kid, and as an adult, often with some family member or friend on board, and many good memories formed there. I teased Dad, he was obsessed with Florida, and he would just laugh at me. Mike encouraged Dad to buy a place, sight unseen, next to Mike. Bob Lowe's, Dad knows you would be here if you could, and I know you are watching from Perry Sound. Please be well. Most of you know Bob as one of Dad's long-term friends, and in Florida, Bob bought right across the street from Dad, where they would start the day with coffee, with the neighbors, and find things to get into trouble with. Dad and Bob were in Florida when Hurricane Charlie, a Category 5, had predicted landfall right where they were. I called hoping they got out of there, and Dad finally answered the phone. I freaked out why he was still there and urged them to get out. After the call, they tried to leave, but it was too late, so Mutt and Jeff weathered out the hurricane together despite part of the roof blowing down the street. Dad and Bob were unable to return home for a period of time as the minivan got smashed, so they had to stay without power and water, exclaiming significant happiness for the delivery of bottled water from disaster relief. Those two were worried, but they laughed about it. Despite Charlie, Bob and Dad both did not give up on Florida. Again, for Dad, like anything else in his life, Florida was about the people, making friends with neighbors and seeing the crew members from here that had places nearby. There were plenty of laughs and hard work helping each other out, consistent with their character. The over and over drives continued to Blue Mountain, where my cousin Danny and Dad formulated and executed plans to build there. It was a frustrating process, with Dad often dragging Uncle Tony and numerous others, including me, back and forth during and after the construction. But Pops was happy having projects, and the aggravation of Blue Mountain turned out well, with many family weekends in Blue Mountain, which Dad just loved. It is simply not possible to adequately relay the memories and the feelings associated with my dad. I will miss my dad more than you can imagine. His love, his wise guidance, his humor, his antics, his frequent sayings, his phone calls to check on me, and his simple requests for rice pudding, butter tarts, coconut cream pie, and ice cream. I hope I absorbed enough over the years to be at least one half the decent, kind, and caring person as my dad demonstrated repeatedly over the years.
I am honored to stand here and say a few words about my Uncle Ron. Uncle Ron was at times a man of few words, quiet if he didn't know you and talkative if he did, especially if you got him on a topic he had interest in, like boats, cars, horses, houses, sports, Florida Collingwood, to name a few. He was a hard worker, loved what he did, which was run Tiger Town Leasing, even while sick, this last year and a half at the age of 89. Uncle Ron could be stubborn, which got him into a lot of trouble with Carolyn, but it didn't seem to bother him too much. His answer would be, I have the final say, I'm the boss, with a great big chuckle at the end of his sentence. Uncle Ron was never a complainer and always suffered in silence. He never wanted you to know he had anything wrong with him or worry you, especially when it came to cuts, bruises, new cancer spots that looked worrisome and a wound on his leg, even aches and pains that he had. It was always, it's all good, no charge was his answer, and that when he would ask him about something we noticed. Uncle Ron always put on a good front, like a strong macho man, but that he had it all together, where deep down he was a kind-hearted man who was a big softy and had hurts and loved family. He was the uncle I knew. Uncle Ron was a man that always had to be busy, couldn't sit still long. Anytime we were away together, you could catch Uncle Ron would never catch Uncle Ron sitting around long or relaxing unless watching his favorite football, hockey team, CNN, or eating. And then later in the evening, we'd find him catching flies. He would be catching flies flaked out on his chair. Uncle Ron always tried to have a positive attitude, no matter how gloom and gloom things got or seemed. He'd always say, we will get through it, it's all good, no charge. He had determination to fight, even to the end of his life. Uncle Ron had a sense of humor which would get us all laughing. When we would ask him how much your used car was worth, he would say, how much does it weigh? Or to my mom, he would say, in the hands of Jesus. You're in the hands of Jesus, because she never trusted his driving or boating skills when he took us out. His deep thinking look I will never forget. His arms crossed, his head down. Uncle Ron loved his desserts no matter how full he was. He always had room for his favorites. Rice pudding, coconut cream pie, apple pie, especially from Grandma Lamb's, ice cream. As a matter of fact, there wasn't really many sweets that he didn't like. There was always room in his book. Uncle Ron loved his daughter Carolyn. He may have had a hard time showing it, but spoke very highly about her and when he had the opportunity with such pride, love, and appreciation for all she had done for him. Uncle Ron, there are many memories we all have of you, and to me, you were a great uncle, and that we shared a lot of fun times as families, and that I will treasure forever. I'm going to miss Uncle Ron and our family meals, special occasions and functions, another empty seat at our tables. You fought a good fight, Uncle Ron, and you will never be forgotten.
It's hard to follow Carolyn's tribute to Uncle Ron, but I just wanted to say a few words. My earliest memories of Uncle Ron taught me a lot of things, not about himself or about family, but about how to deal with people and how to approach life. I remember my earliest memory of Uncle Ron was visiting him at Ford, in the Ford dealership, the Lee Lockwood's dealership downtown. I really didn't know Uncle Ron up to then, but he was my first impression of this charming, well-dressed guy selling cars in this flashy dealership. And he just was impressive. It's hard to believe he was one of my relatives. And a couple years later, I remember sitting on the front porch of Grandma and Grandpa's house, and Uncle Ron came in from his car, talked to the family, then left. And something was going on. Apparently, he was leaving his job and starting a new leasing company. Predictably, Grandpa predicted doom and gloom. He's going to go bankrupt. The whole house, the whole thing's going to be a blow up. Uncle Ron was supremely confident that this would work out greatly for him. I didn't really understand leasing. I didn't understand why anybody would want to lease a car instead of go buy it with cash like Uncle Art used to do. But he was confident. Grandpa predicted doom. Grandma hoped for the best. And Uncle Ron built a company with his faith and his work ethic into the largest independent policing company in Ontario. That was him, an epitome of him. He believed in what he did, he was passionate, he would work forever to make it come to life, and he approached life like many of us don't, worried about the consequences more than the success. He was supremely confident in what he did. When we built our houses in Snowbridge, up in Collingwood, many of you have heard the stories, we didn't really know what we were doing. I just knew that it was going to be successful, and Uncle Ron was going to teach me a lot about things. How to build cheaply, I thought. Not really. But what he did teach me is how to overcome adversity, how to always stay positive, always to believe that the end would be worth it. And it was. But he taught me about approaching life. He taught me how to be positive, how to not criticize people, always to look for the best and look for the strength within you to overcome the obstacles you face in life. He did that right up into the end. With his health issues, he would always think of others before himself. And if you asked him about anything, he was fine. He was worried about other people. If we all take a little bit of what Uncle Ron lived and showed us from his actions, we'll be better people for it. I celebrate Uncle Ron's life, not for all the things he did, but how you approached dealing with other people, how you approach your own self. Be positive, be supportive of the people around you, value people, your family, your friends, to your heart. Keep them close, help them when you need to, help them if you can. And no matter what, be positive. One last thing, don't forget to enjoy your toys. There's got to be some fun in life. It's not all drudgery. You do the best in every aspect to enjoy yourself. I'm going to miss him deeply. I was very close to him. And he always helped me out when I needed it, more times than I care to mention. Goodbye, Uncle Ron. Thank you.
I got my first car off Ronnie 60 years ago in Grimsby Motor Products. I went in there, talked to this well-to-do guy, and he talked me into getting a Mustang Mach 1. And I had that car for quite a few years, and I was the top of the school. But we get back to Ronnie. First things, oh, my wife gave me a thing here, by the way. Carolyn texted me. And she said, you gotta make a list up. You don't need to make a list up when you know somebody for 60 years. The list is a waste of time. You're gonna take a little, it's good enough. Anyway, Ronnie was a family man from day one. He had 4 things in life. The first thing was his family and his daughter. He loved his daughter like anything. Maybe she was spoiled, maybe she wasn't. But she was a great person, and he loved her, and she's come a long way, and she's a lawyer now. That's great. He loved going every Sunday. He'd go to Tony Marge's place, call him for dinner. Every Sunday. What are you doing today? You know what I'm doing, George. We'd go there every Sunday. That was good. I said, you got to spend time with family. That's what it was all about. And as a salesman, he was quite a guy. We had horses together for quite a few years. We enjoyed ourselves. I look right here, if everybody noticed, there's probably a winning ticket right there. It was never cash. Anyway, he loved horses and everything, and we had a great time there. And I enjoyed, doing horses. He enjoyed it and everything. And once, when I came here today, the first thing I noticed was the Corvette out at the front, the Blue Ghost. Holy shit, I haven't seen that for a while. Anyway, I remember my wife saying to me one day, he used to pick her up every night when we raced horses. He loved going to the track. Him and my wife would come to the track. And she'd say to me, I was scared driving with Ronnie sometimes. I was scared. And I was scared. He wasn't the best driver, but he got along. She said, I was actually scared. We'd be going down the 401. She said, I'd be sitting in there. I'd look over, big truck beside us. All you could see was the wheel nuts going round. This car was that far off the ground. He'd pick her up every time we raced. She turned to me one day and she said, George, you know, I really probably would enjoy more riding in the back home with the horse. I said, well, maybe you would, but it wouldn't be as much fun. Anyway, Ronnie was a real worker. He treated everybody with respect. He was loved by all the people here. He was loved by everybody. And later on in the years, when we were out of the horse business, he asked me to come and pick up cars at the auction for him, deliver cars. And we go all over the place. We go to Wahlman to get a new car. One thing about Ronnie was he never took a buy for a lease or anything without shopping around. He'd go to 10 dealers. We were up in Owen Sound, Collingwood, Barrie, Wahlman, and then one day he phones me at home. He says, listen, I just bought a car. Oh, I said, that's good. He says, it's in Windsor. Holy Jesus, I said, Windsor. He said, I want you to go and get it. I said, well, okay, I can go and get it. And it's a good thing. I'll go and see my nephew. He's got horses up in Essex, pretty close to Windsor. I'll phone him, get him to pick me up. He says, good idea. So I planned everything. I'm going to catch the GO train at Aldershot. But only one problem was it only stopped at Chatham. And he lived in Essex. So I said, Jesus, it's half an hour drive. Maybe he'll come. So I phoned. He said, I'll come. So at the last minute, they phoned from Essex and said somebody, or from Essex and said somebody was coming down with a car, so they'd bring the car down. So I didn't have to make the trip. But that's the kind of guy he was. He wouldn't buy that car from a couple of miles around, down the road. He'd shop around for people. And that's why everybody had so much respect for him. He was such a great guy. And everybody sitting here today, if you just think to yourself, what benefits I had in my life by knowing Ronnie Wahlman, that's why I'm here today. Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
Good.
All of you had that at some point. That was his approach. Sometimes you had it more than once. He exuded confidence, but he also exuded, I think, that he was just so happy to have you there. Happy to see you. He was always colloquial in his greetings. It warmed you right away. Put you at a bit of a disadvantage right away. He had the advantage as soon as he was doing that, and he knew it, and he knew how to sell. And he wasn't a guy, I think, who learned how to sell. I think it was part of his nature, and he ended up in the right place to be able to do that. He'd be looking at this today saying, what a dog and pony show. But that would be perfect for him. He would love even thinking about the dogs and the ponies. And I shouldn't be surprised there's so many people here today. I wasn't sure what to think. But he was so connected, so networked with all of us and so many others. He had a sunny optimism. And a lot of us don't. But he did, and it didn't matter what was going on. There was just a sunny optimism about him. He wasn't a shrinking violet either. He was, he could express himself. He's outgoing. People liked him right away, and he earned genuine respect, I think, from the people that did know him. People particularly doing business with him, he followed through. Sometimes late. I got to give him that. but he followed through. And kind of guy who could charm the scales off you can use whatever nun you want to use, but he could charm the scales off. I heard a lot today already, and I heard as I was listening to people chat about Ron today, and what I'm going to probably talk about will simply be an embellishment of what I've already heard. I was about 10 years old when I met Ron, and I was out in the backyard having a tent night. I had a buddy over. It was pretty cool. Probably a lot of us have done that at some point in time. We were kibitzing around. It's getting dark. It's like, 10 o'clock in the summer. And I don't know if people knock on a flat, but anyway, Ron made his presence known. I never met him. I didn't know who he was. It's dark. There's nobody around other than my buddy. And there's a stranger at the tent flap. And he's holding a couple of DQs, a couple of Dairy Queens, Sundays. And it didn't matter at that point who he was. Opened up the flap, we had a Dairy Queen. And that was the first time I met Ron. He didn't know me, but that's the sort of thing that he would do. I've heard this already today. He had an understanding, he had empathy, he had caring. He displayed it time and time again. He was particularly protective of his family and those close to him. Some of his brothers needed some help along the way. I could see that those things happen, and yet they were always under his wing in some way. He was so protective of anybody who needed it. Shortly after, I must have been maybe 11 at this point in time, my parents decided that perhaps it was time to introduce Ron to the generation before them. We went to Niagara Falls and visited my grandparent Arnold's. And my grandfather was a bit of a Winston Churchill type. He was a bit short, a bit roly-poly. And he had a bit of an attitude about the way things should be at this point in life. And he was a Queen's grad. And I know there's at least almost one Queen's grad in this room today. So Ron walks around the corner. My grandfather gets up. He didn't get up a lot. And he got his pipe and his cigar. Who are you? I went to Queen's. What school did you go to? Ron, without missing a beat. I was there. I saw this. Didn't miss a beat. I went to DD school. My grandfather. DD school? He actually, my grandfather could get in your face, but he was actually pushed off a little bit by this because it's something he didn't know anything about. And Ron said, yeah, dum-dum school. That's my school. That's where I came from. And my grandfather, he didn't say a thing, and which is unusual for him. And I thought, probably one of the few times that somebody came back like that at my grandfather with the same sort of approach in setting up a conversation. And I've never forgotten that. And Ron would relate this story to me periodically, and I don't think he forgot that I was there. Anyway. I always thought Ron was a good athlete. He could skate. He could skate backwards. That was cool because I couldn't skate backwards. He could skate backwards and he could skate fast. And he could punt a football way up in the sky. It didn't go that far, but it went way up. And he, most particularly, he could walk on his arms. And I've never met anybody who could do that. You get in the backyard on the lawn. He wouldn't even do a a headstand first. He would do immediately into an arm stand, straight up, and then he'd have to spur around a bit while he was doing that. Never met anybody who could do that. And being young, I thought, boy, that's really impressive. First apartment he had with my sister, it's the bottom of a wardrobe at Stoney Creek, and there was a railing, had a balcony, it was the ground floor. And he wasn't supposed to, but he parked his car right outside the apartment. And he wasn't supposed to, but he would hop the balcony railing. The balcony railing is like this. So there's a lot of things I think in life Ron would say, well, that's a stupid rule. I'm not going to follow that particular stupid rule. And I would see him hopping, one hand on him, over. He'd be in his car in like 10 seconds, and he'd be gone. And I thought, as I was trying to put this together, I thought, well, that's so typical. He always wanted the direct route to something. He didn't want to piss around. He wanted something to happen. And he was doing that way, way back then, from the very beginning. He was like that. He thought he was indestructible, and I've heard that as a common theme so far. And again, we were at the Stoney Creek Monument at the battlefield. And the battlefield has pretty steep steps that run up to the monument. And there's a railing that runs down the middle of the steps. And it was winter, got the toboggan, and the whole family was up for some reason. And there'd been enough snow that the idea was we would just go down, where the grass was, just, where we were supposed to go. Well, Ron decides that he's going to slalom with the toboggan down the stairs. Now the stairs are icy, they're crusty. People have walked up them, they're packed down. And he gets on this thing, he's holding on to the rope, and down he goes. And he hit Mach 1 in like 5 seconds. And I don't think even he thought he'd be going this fast at this point in time. He clips one of the poles holding up the railings. He goes butt over tea kettle, over the railing. The toboggan's done. There's not a lot left of the toboggan at this point in time. He gets up, brushes it off. We thought, is he alive? Well, at least we should be probably taking him to the hospital. He gets up. No big deal. Brushes the snow off of him, so, I'm fine. Making a lot about this, nothing. I know later, he told me a number of times that he was feeling everything that happened to him that day. He wouldn't let anybody know. I should mention the Duke Street dinners that I got to go to the odd time Sunday nights. And I don't know how that family pulled it off. Coming from a kind of small family, 8 of them, and the parents, and young ones at this point in time. And his mom and dad would put this on. His sisters would somehow make some sort of organization happen out of chaos, because it was chaos. And I'll remember that. I remember the Tie-Cat games. Everybody's talked about that. Going November, it was cold. Old Ivor wind. Snow's blowing in, the wind's blowing. It's back before we had climate warming as an issue. And I go, oh my God, this is awful. But that's what I remember about him. Stuff like that. Long-time season ticket holder going to the Tie-Cat games. And so many people here have had exactly that same sort of experience with him. And I've heard a bit about the boats. I don't know how a guy could be in the automotive industry and have so much trouble with boats. As far as I can tell, these are all second-hand stories now, so I don't want to embellish them too much, but Lake Ontario, he's stranded out in Lake Ontario, motors conked out. He's out in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if it was the middle, it's a pretty big body of water, so I don't know if he's in the middle. The engine conks out. This was a little more serious because he was out there for quite some time. And I think actually Carolyn told me this story because I think she was with him at the time. You weren't? Okay, well somebody was. And always in some case he had somebody who would tow him back in after these problems. And as far as I know, he's still got a boat sitting in his place right now that's there. And I don't know if it runs, but that was always something. And then there's bricklaying. Probably didn't know that he was a bricklayer. He, I think it was Grimsby at the time, he was facing a fireplace. He was putting bricks into the fireplace, make it look nice. And so he's got some stuff, I know, cement and bricks and stuff. And he's putting them up and he's gotten up to the top. And he bends down to get his next one, and one of the bricks comes off from the top. Hits him in the back of the head, flattens him out. He's knocked out for a few seconds. The brick is broken. He gets up, and he just goes on and finishes his bricklaying. So maybe he did have an indestructible aspect to him that maybe we just weren't that aware of. And I also thought, he's got this the wonk, which I think probably all of you know. You know, where did that come from? I don't know where it came from. I don't know who ascribed that name to him. But I always thought it had to come from a brick. Like, who else would do that? Breaking a brick over your head? That's wonky. So I thought that must be where that came from. We talked a little bit about squash. I've been on the squash court with him. He did get a little banged up, and we used to call it ringworm. I'm not going to go in any farther with that. I even got out here. Probably shouldn't talk about this here, but it was brought up a little bit anyway. And Ron could always make a joke out of any sort of, visible infirmity that he might have. Everybody knows that he misplaced Carolyn in the States. Everybody knows that. So I'm not going to tell that story because it's been told an awful lot. And he did find her and retrieve her and bring her back, and she's here. So it all worked out just fine, just like everything else that he was involved in. He was working at HMP when I first met him, and I think it was described really well. It was a grand place with cool cars and lots of lights. And, for a kid, that was really cool to see. I can remember him being at Grimsby Motor Products. Wheeling World was a place, I think, where he started to get into the leasing, where he was exposed to the leasing. Leasing was very, very novel at the time, very new. The banks weren't into it, the dealerships weren't into it. Nobody was doing this sort of thing. And he starts up the leasing business. He sees not just himself and what he's capable of, but the opportunity. And many of us get presented with opportunities that perhaps we don't take advantage of. And he did take advantage of that opportunity. Now, why would leasing work? You can get, from Ronnie, you could get any car, any make, anything you wanted, he could get it. You don't get that without going to about 28 different dealerships. You could finance it through Ron. So you didn't have to go to a bank. You didn't have to go through any of that sort of thing. You could deal with all of it, all at the same point. That was attractive. And then there was Ron himself, which we've all talked about, just Ron himself and his ability to be able to sell. So much word of mouth. I didn't see him do a lot of advertising, that sort of thing. It was his ability to connect with the people all around us, family, friends, business, whatever, and that got out there. And he was successful. I didn't know he was the biggest one in Ontario. I knew he had a big book, and I knew there was a lot of work that was involved with it. So here's a guy who described himself as coming from DD school, who accomplished all of this and connected with so many people along the way. I never saw him drink. I never saw him smoke. I don't think I heard him curse. He liked his games of chance, though. He liked Friday night poker nights back in the day. That was part of his routine. Ron had a lot of health issues the last 18 months. It's been unbelievable what he's had to go through. I visited him probably a month or so ago at Lakeview. He showed me his prosthesis, which took forever to get. And he showed me how he could manipulate it, handle it, put it on, take it off. I think he wanted to use it as a weapon sometimes with some, anyway. Dinner, it's time for dinner. And they call him to dinner. And I thought, okay, well, he's gonna, use his walker to walk down to the dinner place, probably. He'll put his mouth on his leg, he'll just stump down. And I thought, well, that's how he'll get there. That's not how he got it. He got in his wheelchair, and he scooted down the hall in his wheelchair. And I'm thinking, why would I be surprised by that? This is a guy who always wanted to go fast, always wanted wheels. Obviously, that's the way he's gonna go into dinner. I should mention some of the other things too I did see. Odd time I go to his various places along through the years. On a Saturday, Ron would be working in the back, and he'd have his cadre of friends and family out in the front. His father would be there, his brothers would be there, and they would be chewing the fat. They weren't doing anything of any consequence. They were just having a good time while they're there. And then Ron would poke in and out, back and forth. So I can only, tell you that truly did happen. It happened consistently. I think Carolyn's been his ace in the hole. She's done what I would consider to be yeoman support. He was lucky. And I think is the ultimate sign of respect. What does his daughter do? She marries a guy just like Ron. Same kind of personality. Anita found me a passage to read. And bear with me there. Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but can't. All of that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in the hollow part of your chest. Grief is just the love that has nowhere to go.
My name is Linda Binkley. I'm one of several nieces, along with nephews that called Ron Uncle. And I want to thank you this morning on behalf of Carolyn and our family for just coming and paying your respects for Ron. Standing here, it doesn't seem real that I'm standing in front of his casket. I thought my uncle was going to live forever with his determination and strong will. He is the last living child of Archie Wahlman and Margaret Ward. He had 7 other siblings that predeceased him. He lived a ripe age of 90, even though he might have said he was only 89, but his birth certificate confirmed that. And his mother also lived to be 90. He reminded me so much of my grandmother because he had the same attitude as her, that wonderful attitude. He didn't allow his age to dictate what he was going to do. He would always say, it's only a number, and that's true. Some people get so bummed out about their age and let that keep them back from doing things, but that was not the case with my uncle. I have a couple of cute stories I just want to share about his determination that I was glad never happened. One day he decided to take the staff out. He was going to take the staff out for a boat ride to Port Dalhousie. And as we were going through the little channel down at 50 Point, they're all saying from the dock, "Don't go out. There's a storm warning." And I'm saying, "Ron, are you listening to that? There's a storm warning." He goes, Ron. So it was like we get out to Lake Ontario, and the waves are like about 3 feet. And the boat is rocking like this. And I'm thinking, and he's very determined, we're going to go to Fort Dalhousie. And I'm panicked. I'm actually probably freaking out. Probably the only one on the boat freaking out because I'm thinking I'm going to die. And he was determined he was going to get that boat nose up. And thankfully, it wouldn't go up. So we had to head back in, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, Lord, for just answering prayer." And I lived to tell the story. And just recently, when he got his prosthetic leg, he was determined that he was going to drive again. He was going to get his license back. And you just go along with him. Probably you didn't want to discourage him. And but he had it in his mind he was going to get his license back because he was going to use one leg for the brake and one leg for the gas. And I'm thinking, well, that's unsafe and an accident waiting to happen. And well, I never got to that point, but I'm just so glad that, because I would have stayed away from Stoney Creek on the day he was driving, that's for sure. The definition of legacy is something that is passed on. People leave a legacy to know that their life mattered. A legacy is something we leave behind after we are gone. And that's what he has done. Even though he refused to believe he was 90 years old, he lived a good life. And as we can hear, he touched many lives in many ways. And that's a legacy, a lasting impact or legacy that he's left for each one of us. I'm sure many of you who knew Ron can recount your times with him and the conversations with him. He loved to talk cars, that's for sure, because that's what he knew best. And Ron was from the old school. His handshake was his word. And that's not the same today in our society. Whatever he told you, he would follow through. I checked out the funeral website, and it was really nice to read the tributes that people had written about Ron and the impact he had on their lives. One thing about my uncle is that he never liked to bring any attention to himself. But through his kindness and good heart, he has touched people by that. I was talking recently to a couple of customers, and one of the things they said to me was, "Ron was always good to me." I heard that so often. He never complained. Even when he was in discomfort, he would always tell you that he was fine, when in fact we knew he wasn't. So Carolyn would tell the doctors, don't believe him when he says he's fine, because he's probably not. When I think of my uncle, so many things, wonderful times spent together, cherished memories that I will hold dear always to my heart. We had a very close relationship. We spent a lot of time up in Blue Mountain with the family. Many road trips when we were younger. Were we going anywhere specific? No, just to take a drive. Our trips to Florida were an adventure because we would drive 24 hours without stopping. But those are the types of things that you do when you're younger and foolish. He was a very generous person by sharing what he had with each of us. We were blessed by that. I think he knew what it was like to have nothing when he was growing up. And he wanted to share the fruits of what he had worked hard for with his family. He had such a big heart. I told him one time, "You are too good to a fault." But that's who he was, and he never changed. And he could never sit still. He always had to be doing something. And my sister already talked about when we were in Florida, how he'd come in and my dad would say, "You're bleeding," and he wouldn't even want to acknowledge that. and because the trees attacked him or something out there. So I came to work for my uncle when I was 17 years old. I started off in his cleanup shop, worked my way into the office, which is where I stayed for several years. I left my uncle for a brief time and then came back to work on some of his tough accounts, which were called bad debts. I learned so much from working there, kind of like my uncle, who never went to college for business, but he probably learned a lot by the mentors in his life. I know that when I was working for my uncle, we would have our differences or disagreements, but we never got mad at each other. I think more than anything, I was more frustrated with him than anything. And you know, he would always remind me of something that I had bought him several years ago that he kept in his office. There were these blocks that you read them and it always referred back to the number one block, pardon me, the number one block, which said, the boss is always right. So one day I told him, well, I'm sorry, but you're not always right. And we just had a laugh about that. He loved to be with his family. He would come up to my parents faithfully every Sunday for a home-cooked meal. He loved it when my dad made spaghettis, as he would say it. We shared a lot of laughs and enjoyed having that family time together. He loved his desserts, which is a Wahlman trait. He loved all the desserts that my mom would make, but especially coconut cream pie and rice pudding. So for his 90th birthday this year, I made him a coconut cream pie and said that I hope it's as good as Mom would have made it for you. We as a family have shared so many stories and laughs with Uncle Ron over the years. Well, that will not end now that he's gone. He will certainly not be forgotten. To us, he was a wonderful person, and we thank God for making him part of our lives and part of our family. I'd like to share a song with you that I wanted to sing. I will sing it a cappella, but you have to just bear with me. I'm fighting a cold, but it's a song that really speaks to the heart. And I think today that God knows what each one of us are feeling. That brokenness, that pain, the sting of death that we all face eventually. But he comes along and he comforts us through times like this. And you know, we might think that, well, God doesn't care. Well, he does. It matters to him. And today he knows that this has left a hole in our hearts. Someone who meant so much to us. And that it really matters to him today that he wants to say, I know, I care, and I'm there for you. So just bear with me as I sing this song. The words are beautiful. It goes like this. When life lets you down and you feel more broken than whole, when the wounds go deeper than words and you can't tell a soul, I may not know what you're going through, and I may not make that high mountain move, but one thing I found that I really want you to know. If it matters to you, it matters to the Master. He wants to share the burdens you bear. Whisper peace when your world gets shattered. If it's your greatest joy or your deepest pain, or you're really needing an answer, if it matters to you, it matters to the Master. Friend, do you think the maker and giver of life is far too busy to care about out your trouble and strife. He sees the sparrow that falls to the ground, and he hears the tears that don't make a sound. If you only knew how precious you are in his sight, if it matters to you, it matters to the Master. He wants to share the burdens you bear. Whisper peace when your world gets shattered. If it's your greatest joy or your deepest pain, or you're really needing an answer, if it matters to you, it matters to the Master.
Amen.
Goodbye, Uncle Ron. I love you, and I'm glad that you are now in peace.
Bow together in prayer. For God, we give you thanks for Ron. For all that comes to our minds when we speak his name, we seek courage to continue to speak Ron's name in love and honor. We know that you are with us, that we are not alone. There are joys shared and there is help in times of grief. Let us hear the scriptures as words of encouragement so that we may trust the love you have shown us in Jesus Christ, our risen Lord. Amen. From the book of Job, chapter 12, ask the animals, they will teach you. The birds of the air, they will tell you. The plants of the earth, they will teach you. The fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In God's hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of every human being. Job also said, the hungry eat their harvest, and they take it even out of the thorns. And the thirsty pant after their will. For misery does not come from the earth, nor does trouble sprout from the ground, but human beings are born to trouble just as sparks fly upward. As for me, I would seek God, and to God I would commit my cause. God does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. God gives rain on the earth and sends waters on the fields. God sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. The 23rd Psalm says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The book of Philippians, it says, finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing the things that you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, and the God of peace will be with you. And finally, from the Gospel, Mark chapter 9. John said to Jesus, Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us. But Jesus said, do not stop him, for no one who does a deed of power in my name will soon afterward be able to speak evil of me. Whoever's not against us is for us. Truly I tell you, whoever gives a cup of cold water to drink, because you bear the name of Christ, will by no means lose the reward. It's been clear today is that everybody loved Ron Wahlman. And how could you help it? A smile, a clear welcome, a sharp mind, the excellence that he always sought. Ron welcomed everybody. He knew a good bet. The best bet was on people, knowing people, being known. Connection was everything. Ron knew that ancient wisdom that human beings are born to trouble just as sparks fly up. We need to help each other. Ron's response to that truth was to remain open, to help where he could, to make sure that his investments are as wise as they could be. Ron understood the need to trust people and the need to keep sharp and make your own decision. Ron always appreciated his family and cherished his friends. He was determined to do some good thing in this world. And he did good things in this world for his family and for us all. Ron loved you when that was easy, when it was not easy, and you've loved Ron when it was easy and when it was not easy. When you had to put up with what you couldn't manage to fix for Ron, for each other. Ron taught you well to love, to keep family and friends as first and foremost, to do useful work in your community, no matter if it's the work of your hands or your heart or your intellect. These are the things that really matter in the world and in the next. When you remember Ron's way in this world, you will find strength to help each other. Keep doing good work, endure what must be endured, and remain open to what's next always. The wonderful thing about Ron, he never really acted like a 90-year-old was done with the world, was he? What was next? Let's keep going. Whatever doubts we have, beliefs for that matter, we always do well to follow Jesus' wisdom, to make provision to give the cup of cold water to people who are thirsty. Ron was able to cast out some demons and endure some others, always seeking to make people feel welcome, always taking the right kind of chances, investing in relationships and opportunities that welcome the future. We will do well to follow Ron's example. He embraced the possibility of mercy and grace in a world where human beings find a certain amount of trouble. Ron sought grace and peace by embracing people who crossed his path and by seeing opportunities that others may have overlooked. Ron's life with you and with us all will always be a divine grace, a miracle of the best kind. Magic that we do for ourselves and for each other out of sheer determination, out of deep love, out of unshakable loyalty and unflinching truth. Never set aside the grace of remembering Ron with thanksgiving and gratitude. The life he led is a sign that there is a divine grace in this world if we allow for it. Miracles don't mean we'll never walk a dark valley or feel the shadow of death, but death is only a shadow. Light shines even in the darkness, and we find strength and spirit in loving memory. Give thanks for every good gift that you have received through the love and the labors of Ron Wahlman, and may the day come when we are together again, all diseases healed, all sorrows past. Maybe even that, I don't know. I've always wondered in heaven, do we get our hair back and our legs back and the things we've lost, or do we just have an awful lot of fun with the way we've wound up? One way or another, the future comes for us, even beyond this life. Let us always give thanks to God for Ronald Melvin Wahlman. We can be convinced, not death or life, not angels or rulers, not a thing present or to come. There isn't a power, a height, or a depth. There is nothing in all of creation that is able to separate us from the love of God, which we have seen revealed in Jesus Christ our Lord, which you have seen revealed in the love and the labors you shared with Ron Wahlman. Thanks be to God. Let's bow together in prayer. Our God, you ask us to remember each other with kindness, to celebrate the life, the love, the joys we find together with each other, even when there's also trouble and sickness and sorrow. Help us remember all the good in Ron's life with us, even as we grieve our loss of Ron. Let us find strength and wisdom to care for each other, even when we can't make everything right or heal every disease. Let us see how loving each other is eternal and steadfast and stronger than death. In the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, death is conquered and we have hope. Let us in our day find sacred memory and eternal gratitude. We give you thanks for Ron Wahlman. We are sorry for what he has suffered in his life, but give thanks for the joys he found in this life, the accomplishments, the friendships that he has embraced, for the way he has taken pride and joy in his connections to family and community. We are grateful for the love Ron found with his family and his friends, and we give thanks for all the good that he has done that we know and remember, and the good that he did that we will never know anything about. We pray that nothing good in Ron's life will be lost, but will continue as our memories of him. Help us to cherish those memories and share those memories and keep those memories sacred, so that we might find healing and comfort. We give thanks that for Ron all sickness and sorrow are ended, that death itself has passed, that he enters the place where all your people gather in peace. Our God, in Jesus Christ, you wept at the grave of a dear friend. Hear our prayers for those who mourn Ron's loss today. For Carolyn, for Tony, for all his nieces and nephews, his extended family. For everyone who named Ron a friend or a colleague. For God, we ask for mercy. We ask that you heal broken hearts and bind up the wounds of those who are hurting. Strengthen us, calm troubled spirits, dispel doubt and fear. God, in the resurrection of Jesus, The fear of death is conquered. You've opened the gate to everlasting life. Renew our hope that we will, by the power of all that is good, one day be brought together again with Ronald in life and death. We ask this through Jesus Christ, who taught us to pray together, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you for coming today. It is a kindness, and it is appreciated. It is a help to Ron's family as they grieve his loss. Gathering and remembering Ron in the days ahead is an affirmation of love and respect, and it will bring healing in a time of sorrow. Let's make sacred our memories of Ron and never let remembering him bring us to harm or trouble. Though I guess the driving might frighten us a little. Find opportunities to care for each other, and you'll find your way to peace. Thank you to everyone. I'm sure some have traveled here today, and we should say hello. I don't think they can see you, so say hello and thank you for coming. To the folks on the live stream, go ahead. Hello. Okay, good. And it just lets them know we're here. It's weird these days, but there we are. Following the service, we're going to make procession to Woodland Cemetery for a brief committal service. Remember that we must obey all the traffic signals and rules of the road.
Really?
Or perhaps in honor of Ron, don't do any of that. They will give you a ticket if they catch you, so do your best to come safely. And maybe it's better not to take the Lake Ontario route. If you would now, we'll stand and we'll receive a blessing. God, let this gathering today always be sacred to the memory of Ron Wahlman. Let us celebrate Ron's life. Let's honor and remember him. Let's speak his name in loving memory. Let's mourn our loss. But let us remember every joy Ron ever knew with us. And our God of hope will fill us with all joy and peace in believing, until we all experience God's mercy and steadfast love, abiding in faith and hope and love. This by the power of God's Holy Spirit, who is at work in each and all of us. Amen. Let us go from here in peace.
May I all apologize, please?
Here's a step in, receive your hands. Probably need to put the tree closer to the hands, just so you don't overlook a lot. We're going to test it together. Go slowly, watch your step on the stairs.
Maybe an hour. Well, yeah.